Welcome to the Top Tier Pack podcast. I'm Jeff Minder with TopTierK9 and TopTierPeople. This is an interesting subject I'm going to be going over with you today. It's my goal is that you comprehend the elements of artificial intelligence, right? Comprehend what AI is. There's so much crap out there today related to artificial intelligence, especially in the area of fear, and you wondering, what is it going to take my job? Is it going to replace all the workers? Are we going to have, some universal income guaranteed because AI will, eliminate all human jobs? Then you've got the data center fights where, and they want to make us afraid for a data center to be set up because it consumes so much water, makes everybody's electric bills go up, and doesn't bring long-term jobs to the community. So I thought it best if I do a 20-minute podcast giving you information on what AI actually is. I have a degree in computer science. I have co-owned a software development company for several years, developed software applications for over 30 vertical markets. You pick it, I've probably worked in it, from aerospace to automotive to retail, to banks, casinos and lotteries, dog training, of course, scanning and imaging systems, data warehousing, knowledge-based development. I've got a diverse background in the area of computers and computer technology. I'm a certified project manager. I've worked and taught in 11 different universities at Motorola, Lockheed Martin, Knowles Atomic Power Lab, which was one of my favorites, NASA, I think I mentioned that, and several, again, pretty much any vertical market I've either developed technology within or I've taught in that vertical market, bringing the engineers and the business analysts and the other stakeholders of a project together and managing the creation of a new product, a new service, or a new result. I developed the world's first virtual reality dog training center, taking a virtual reality headset and developing a dog training department within that, so real estate within the metaverse, and have a background then in the more advanced technologies when we start getting into three-dimensional stuff. I'm developing have developed two AI systems, one for TopTierK9, one for TopTierPeople, and I'm also developing robots. So I'm working in the field of robotics, and I'm creating add-ons to the robots that are coming. In essence, I'm developing my own scent detection system for robotic canines and humans. Human-like robots, where someone with disabilities, let's say they have a peanut allergy or they have diabetes, the scent detection plug onto the robots will do a scent process whereby the robotic dog or the robotic human can alert to that allergen, and many other things, from explosives, narcotics, viruses. The scent detection system I'm developing takes my decades of dog training and scent detection work in the working dog field, and I developed a machine with components that actually I can train in different scent. So I've got a nice background in technology, and I just completed a MIT course, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, in artificial intelligence. And I completed it satisfactorily. So I've wrapped my brain around AI, and I want to take 20 minutes to help you understand it in a way that you actually can understand it. It's not magic. All right. AI is a computer program. That's what it is. It understands language, it solves problems, and it makes decisions in ways that used to require a human brain to do. But it is a computer program. Think of AI like a super intelligent assistant, somebody that just basically has read every book, watched every video, done, pretty much gathered all the knowledge anybody could possibly gather in the universe. And you ask that person a question, and they go through their catalog in their brain, and they answer the question based on the facts of all the data that they've read and that they've brought into their knowledge base. It doesn't truly think. AI doesn't think or have feelings like a human. What it does is it can predict and generate useful answers, images, code, right? It can create music. It can do things like that, and it can advise based on everything it's learned. But it doesn't think. Right? It doesn't know that it's getting up in front of a group to speak about financing and banking or insurance or writing legislation as a senator or a congressman, right? So it doesn't think like that nor have the feelings, of a senator or congressman or police officer right? So that police officer makes those decisions on his knowledge base based on how he's supposed to act, right? As a police officer. A project manager does the same thing. A dog trainer does the same thing. They're functional in nature, right? So we get our knowledge base within our functions, and then we make decisions based on what we know. That's all AI does, right? But it doesn't do it from that professional standpoint. It's just a boatload of knowledge, right? So in order to understand how AI works, you have to stay in 4 primary pieces of the world of AI. The first is what's called the large language model, or the LLM. The second is a system prompt. Think of it as the gate guard, or think of it as the cop, right? That stands in front of the big library that's a knowledge base or an LLM. So, think of that system prompt as that professional, a doctor, a surgeon, a police officer, a senator, right? So that's the system prompt, right? And that's how the person would act based on their profession. Well, that's all a system prompt is. It becomes an expert on a subject, then uses that big knowledge base of the LLM to gather all of that data. I want you to understand what a RAG is. It's retrieval augmented generation. Think of it really no differently than a system prompt with some graphic user interface around it. And then the final one is the end user chat box, which is what you type into to get AI to give you an answer. So the chat boxes include, Grok, Google, Gemini, right, which is Google, and then ChatGPT, which is OpenAI. So those are the 4 we're going to go into detail on, probably 3 to 4 minutes each. You're going to have a great understanding of how they all come together to give you the life that AI can actually give us relative to retrieving information and learning as a human being. The picture would look like this. On the right is a large language model, the LLM. Gemini, which is what Google communicates through or to. You got XAI, which is what Grok communicates to. You got OpenAI, which is what ChatGPT communicates to. So you see on the left, just example user interfaces. It runs through a system prompt, right, the gate guard, and then reaches out into that big library of data and collects the information and returns it to the user interface based on the rules and the things listed in that system prompt. So I can tell the system prompt to act like a police officer, and I want it to use the Gemini LLM, and then it will limit its communication with the end user to just police officer stuff or just legal stuff, right? Or just school stuff or mechanics or robotics or mathematics, right? So a system prompt can be anything. It can represent anything. On the LLM, remember, it's the core brain. It's that big library with all the billions of records and words and music and videos and everything that's in there. It predicts words and sequence. It predicts it. That's about all the thinking an LLM does. It can predict. And it stores patterns, doesn't have a real understanding, right? The system prompt through the user interface, ChatGPT, Grok, Gemini, or Google, controls the system prompt, right? So it uses that system prompt to gather data from their own LLM, and that's the power, the engine behind the whole AI system. That system prompt, though, is where the power is, right? So a system prompt, it's AI's hidden instruction manual. So it tells the AI or the LLM, tells the interface how to behave, gathers data from the LLM as it's told to do, limiting or adding or slanting or having a bias towards certain things, right? That's all contained within that system prompt. It controls safety, biases, and values, and it can be updated quickly by the company. Consider it a Word document, because that's pretty much what it looks like. Just a Word document. You say, hey, I want you to answer these in bold, confident way. I want you to be very direct to the end user, or I want you to answer this in a very pleasing way. I want you to, be kind with all of your answers and make the person feel good no matter what information they're communicating. That's all contained within the system prompt. So again, it looks like this. You got the interface, the user interface on the left. You got the system prompt that the user interface controls. And then it communicates with its library, right? The LLM, the large language model. Known biases within these user interfaces. ChatGPT uses OpenAI. It is considered the strongest left-leaning progressive bias among all the major LLMs. It is the woke part of the world when you're using ChatGPT. So it is flavoring everything it answers to you, designs for you, outputs for you in a very left-leaning value base. It frequently adds moral disclaimers, refuses controversial topics, frames answers with progressive assumptions, tends to favor institutional and official narratives. So if we were in the middle of COVID and you popped into ChatGPT, it's going to instantly say you will die if you don't get a vaccination or wear a mask. No ifs, ands, or buts. Type in something about ivermectin, it's going to be off limits and won't even answer it. Right? So that's sort of, I'm not saying that's exact, but that's the ChatGPT is that liberal, progressive, pro-government has all the answers AI. Google uses Gemini. Remember, ChatGPT uses OpenAI. Google uses Gemini in their AI, because you go to a Google search and you can say AI mode. And as soon as you do that, it's connecting to a system prompt and going straight to the Gemini large language model. Also has a noticeable left-leaning bias. There's some recent studies show it is slightly less extreme than OpenAI. Which would be ChatGPT. So when you think about it, the two most prominent, most powerful AI systems that humans would interface with, just us end users as common Joes, are absolutely left-leaning, progressive in their system prompt management. Now, Grok is the least biased towards progressive viewpoints, significantly more willing to give direct, politically incorrect, or contrarian answers. Now, it's still biased to some degree in that Elon Musk, kind of tells that system prompt, what I want to do, right? I want you to tell the truth. I want you to lean towards science. I want you to lean towards going to Mars. They can put all these kind of rules. I'm not saying those are exact, but that's how you write up a system prompt, right? Because all that system prompt is the flavor, the values, the moral guidelines, the moral foundation, the guardrails of the end user interface going to that large language model or just that big library. Studies often rank Grok as the most balanced or right of center among the big models. All the others are left. So you look ChatGPT, system prompt, large language model. Again, ChatGPT, OpenAI. Grok, user interface, system prompt, which would be XAI rules, and then XAI as its large language model. Google uses their system prompt and their rules and uses Gemini as its core. There's about 9 major models out there, but these are the 3 that we as consumers are going to mostly be using. Our kids are going to be using, they're going to use it at schools, they're going to use it everywhere else. Now there's 2 new ones. That's the TopTierK9 user interface and the TopTierPeople user interface. So what that is a user interface, or a RAG, which again is a retrieval augmented generation, developed with its own system prompt, and it uses XAI as its large language model. I had originally used OpenAI for the original development of both of them, and when I discovered the extreme left-leaning elements of the answers, I went and migrated everything to the LLM of XAI. And so Super Grok, that user interface has a system prompt, just like TopTierK9 has a user interface and system prompt, and TopTierPeople has a user interface and a system prompt. Now you know how TopTierK9.com works and how TopTierPeople work. All right, it's a piece of software that I wrote that sits on top of the websites, and you can go ask it questions. TopTierK9 would be dog-related questions. TopTierPeople would be human-related questions. My system prompts are geared on TopTierK9 to use all of TopTierK9's curriculum, all of my lesson plans, all of my student feedback, all the videos we've ever created. So basically, I created a middle library, and it's limited to using that library, but we'll also use Grok and XAI, the XAI library, for extraneous things that may not be specifically inside of the RAG, of the TopTierK9 RAG. The TopTierPeople is its RAG, and its system prompt is based on the King James Bible, is based on the Federalist Papers, the U.S. Constitution, much of my survival, evasion, resistance, and escape history, all my lesson plans, all the lessons learned of prisoners of war from all the different wars, and like how they struggled to survive in the most high intensity, extreme environments of the world. So it takes all of those types of information, and then the system prompt says, answer you, the user, by considering all of these things from people who have been in horrible conditions in their lives, how they survived, how they, grew up, created their own security, escaped, or, built a family or came back and built a business, how they did it, and how they were able to get through those extreme environmental challenges and still return with honor. So a fight with your boyfriend, a fight with your girlfriend, you're having financial problems, tell TopTierPeople about it. And it will tell you how to solve that problem. And it's forged in fire from the folks who damn near died to have the chance to sit on a toilet and have a cup of coffee for their future. So those are both RAGs, retrieval augmented generation systems that I wrote that use system prompts designed by me that communicate with the XAI database. Other things that besides this user, you're working through a user interface, through a system prompt, and into a large language model or database, a knowledge base. That's just kind of that human communication piece of what AI does. It also does image and video generation, autonomous vehicles and robots, which I'm working in the autonomous robotic side. The Tesla, for instance, the self-driving Tesla, the newest model, has just proven to be 9 times safer than a human driving a car. So now what you have is you have AI educating itself end to end. So it's got this constant improvement loop with minimal human interjection, and it creates the greatest opportunity that it can, and then continues to do it, right? Where you can have upgrades and improvements in days of huge systems like a self-driving vehicles navigation system. They could find issues in a day and then have that upgraded in 2 days and operating at 10 times better than a human, 20 times better than a human. Sky's the limit on that end-to-end AI learning. Medical and diagnostic and healthcare is huge. What AI is doing in that world is phenomenal. All right, we're going to be able to have access to healthcare with almost zero cost if AI is allowed to grow like it can grow, where we can have a one-on-one health relationship with the greatest doctors, the greatest chemists, the greatest scientists, the greatest everything relative to medicine, from x-rays to MRIs to functional MRIs, all at our fingertips. And that, to me, is the greatest growth of the benefit to humanity that AI is bringing. There's a lot more. Fraud detection in finance. I know that the government is using AI for all of its fraud detection in Social Security, in daycare services, and SNAP benefits. So AI is out there anticipating, reading data, predicting, and then coming up with solutions in nanoseconds that would take humans years to uncover. The last thing I want to talk about is the big pushback everybody's got on these AI data centers. We need, as a community and as communities, to embrace these data centers. By 2030, AI is projected to add up to 15.7 trillion to the global economy. A massive portion of that value will flow through these data centers, right? And you see it's just a big bank of computers. Of course, it needs a lot of cooling, right? Because that's a lot of heat. So they use a lot of water, but it's a closed system, right? They use evaporation to cool, and the closed systems, they take a lot of water initially to fill up, but they don't take a lot of water to be maintained because they're closed systems. What it means is, if there's a data center in our community, and if we're afraid that AI is going to steal our jobs, well, guess what? The data centers hold the LLMs. They hold the large language models. They hold the system prompts. They hold the primary elements of the RAGs and the user interfaces. So the more people that use AI, and the faster AI figures things out to answer them based on the command prompts or the system prompts, it needs more data. It needs more horsepower. It needs to grow. And then these data centers will be the taxing authority, will have the tax system created by the data centers will benefit communities. They've estimated hundreds of millions of dollars in one community in North Virginia alone per year, right, as a taxable object by the community. So in fairness, we're nuts if we're not out there lobbying to get these data centers in our communities, doing them right. Florida's doing it great, right? The data centers cannot take up any electricity they command to get everything going and moving things together. They have to provide the infrastructure and the money for, right? So it's not going to hurt our electric bills. In North Florida, we sit on top of the aquifer, right? The water comes out of the aquifer to cool the data center. Well, guess what? If Madison County doesn't do it and Jefferson County does it, it's the same aquifer. And then Jefferson County gets the tax revenue. But our water still drains in the aquifer here. And there's very little water used by data centers and predicted to be used by data centers as compared to everything else from agriculture, and overall we're using, less than 10% of available renewable water sources on our, in our country. So there's plenty of water to cool this. It's not going to impact our electric bills. It's going to be a taxing opportunity for the local community. Anyway, that's just AI 101 from a guy that just sits here at night, works on it, works on my robots, teaches some dog training, and plays with my dogs. So I hang out with my dogs. So that was a quick one for the TopTierK9 pack. second podcast out, and it's really just about AI. I hope you all have a great night, and we'll be talking to you soon.